Okay, good morning and welcome everybody to this webinar, ERC Grants, How to Prepare, Apply and Succeed. My name is Clarissa Gomes. I'm a European Funding Advisor and a National Contact Point for the European Research Council, or ERC, at Luxinnovation. I want to start by setting the goal and the agenda of our session today. So the main goal is really to both present the ERC funding opportunities and give you practical insights into how to approach and prepare a proposal for the upcoming calls. So whether you are already working on your application or just exploring the idea to apply, I really hope today's session will give you useful knowledge for the next steps. So here's a quick overview of what we are going to cover today. I will begin with a short introduction of Luxinnovation and how our team can support you throughout your European funding journey. Then we'll explore three main topics. First, an overview of the ERC mission and grant schemes. Then highlight the changes to the 2025 and 2026 work programs. And finally, evaluation process insights and proposal development tips. We'll then hear from Dr. Florian Kaiser, who's there also on the screen, recent ERC Consolidator Grant recipient at the LIST, which is the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, where he'll share his quite interesting journey and experience applying for and securing ERC funding. And we'll wrap up with a Q&A session. So there is a tab called Questions. Feel free to send your question at any time. It's on the right side of the screen. Without further ado, let me just briefly introduce you who we are at Luxinnovation. So I'm part of the European funding team who supports applicants from Luxembourg or with a host institution based in Luxembourg. And we are a team of 7 people, each with a thematic focus to provide more in-depth and specialized support. And in our team, we all wear 2 hats, serving as national contact points for Horizon Europe, so helping researchers and organizations access and navigate all the programs. And we also represent Luxembourg in the program committees, helping shape future work programs by sharing national priorities. And as national contact points, or NCPs, we offer free tailored support throughout the various steps of your Horizon Europe journey, from identifying funding opportunities to reviewing your proposal and guiding project implementation. So, such as advising on eligibility, budget, and other requirements. We offer critical proposal review and mock interview support, especially for the ERC, to refine our proposal alignment with evaluators' expectations. And we organize training sessions like this one. Finally, if your project gets funded, we also support you during the implementation phase. So before continuing, just a few words on housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded, and after the session, we will share the slides with you. And as you may have noticed, your microphone and video are disabled. So this is normal, it's a feature of the platform, but you can ask questions using the Questions tab on the right side of the screen. There's also a chat for just general comments. So let's start by introducing the ERC mission and grants. The European Research Council, or ERC, is part of Horizon Europe, which is the main European funding program between 2021 and 2027, with a dedicated budget of 95.5 billion euros for its 7 years. So it's a vast program, and I will not go into details, but I want to position ERC within it. So the ERC is part of Pillar 1, which is called Excellent Science. And opportunities under this pillar also include the Marie-Skłodowska-Curie actions and the research infrastructures. These are mostly bottom-up programs, meaning there are no predefined topics. So the researcher chooses the topic that they want. And the ERC corresponds to 17% of the Horizon Europe budget, totaling 16 billion euros. The ERC was established in 2007 with a mission to support the highest quality research to advance knowledge and scientific achievements in Europe. So it supports investigator-driven frontier research across all fields based on a single evaluation criteria, which is scientific excellence. And it's open to all scientific disciplines and supports ambitious ideas that have the potential to lead to major advances in the field. So based on this, it's really relevant to highlight that the ERC is definitely not looking for incremental research. It funds breakthrough research projects. And here is how the ERC explains this concept. Breakthrough research are ambitious projects capable of forcing a breakthrough in knowledge. So meaning that it can shift existing paradigms and should lead to significant knowledge gains or new methods or theories. It should be different from what others are currently investigating, and it should explore new emerging fields or introduce unconventional or innovative approaches. So while most Horizon Europe programs emphasize industrial and societal impact, the ERC focuses on scientific impact. Some key features and advantages of the ERC are that it funds projects based only on the excellence of the idea. It's fully bottom-up, so all fields are welcome, where the researcher is free to choose their own topic, and it represents a quality label. So this is a highly prestigious grant and often boosts the PI's profile and visibility internationally, attracting excellent collaborators and additional funding. And it also provides autonomy for up to 5 years, helping PIs establish or consolidate their teams. So what are the grants available under the ERC? There are different opportunities for various career stages. So there are 3 individual grants that you see on the screen: the Starting Grant, Consolidator, and Advanced Grant. They are targeted at researchers depending on the experience and time of after obtaining their PhD. So the Starting Grant supports excellent researchers, as the name says, starting their independent research team. The eligibility window is between 2 and 7 years after successfully defending their PhD. And the maximum budget is of 1.5 million euros. The Consolidator is the next step in the career stage. It supports researchers consolidating their independent research team who have obtained their PhD within 7 to 12 years. It funds projects up to 2 million euros. And the third, Advanced Grant, supports investigators already established as research leaders. Typically, an ERC Advanced Grant principal investigator is an active researcher that has a recognized track record of significant research achievements. And the maximum budget is up to 2.5 million euros. All 3 individual grants fund projects for up to 5 years and can receive additional funding for special costs related to, for example, the researcher moving to Europe, to an European member state or associated country, or purchase of major equipment that's necessary for the project, access to large facilities, and also major experimental and field work. And regarding the type of funding, the Starting and Consolidator grants are actual costs, and the Advanced Grant is actually lump sum. So for those submitting an Advanced Grant, the difference with the lump sum model is that it's defined up front by the PI based on the estimated costs. And it's important to note that this budget is related to the project's activities. So the contribution is based on the work carried out and reported, irrespective of the actual costs or successful outcome of the project activities. But regardless of the type of funding, just remember that all costs should be well justified, since the panel also evaluates the budget. And in addition to these 3 individual grants, there are 2 other grant schemes. The Synergy Grant, which is for 2 to 4 PIs, with funding up to 10 million euros, and plus more 4 million for additional funding up to 6 years. And I'll go into a bit more detail on the Synergy Grant in the next slide. And there's the Proof of Concept, which is available only to existing ERC grant holders to provide support to develop a proof of concept to bridge the gap between research and the earliest stage of marketable innovation. Here are a few more details about the Synergy Grant. So the goal of this project type is to address very ambitious research challenges, both in risk and in scope, that cannot be addressed by a single PI. And to succeed, proposals of this type must show synergy, as the name says, 2 to 4 PIs, bringing complementary expertise to form a strong and very well integrated collaboration. It's really about the know-how of the group and the combination of scientific approaches. It also needs to show joint effort, where the research goal can only be achieved through the specific combination of approaches and knowledge. So the collaboration should really make the group greater than the sum of its parts. And the principal investigators join as equals. All PIs are equally important and needed for the project. There is no requirement of career stage, and one PI can be based outside Europe. So to summarize, this is not a loose collaboration or sequential work. It's about forming a unified research team where the outcome is greater than the sum of its parts, required to address the complexity of such an ambitious project. This slide shows the eligibility criteria, which is important to keep in mind when planning the proposal. So regarding the PI, there are no restrictions based on nationality or current location, or even current employment or contract status. There is a criteria for the host institution where the PI will conduct the research, which must be based in a European member state or associated country. And it must provide a support letter committing to host the PI for the duration of the action. And finally, there's a minimum time commitment required of PIs to spend on the ERC grant and in the European member state or associated country that is shown in the table. So this time commitment is calculated as an average across the entire project duration. So for example, starting grant, the PI must spend at least 50% on the ERC project and a minimum of 50% of the time in Europe, and so on. For the Synergy Grant, since one of the PIs can be based outside Europe, of course, this is not applicable if it's the case. Now let's move to the second part of this webinar and look at the changes introduced to the work program, both 2025 and 2026. Let's start with the 2025 amendment. So this amendment only affects the advanced grant, which is the last call in this work program of 2025. And there is one change, basically, which refers to additional funding that applicants can request for startup costs, such as or purchase of major equipment, access to large facilities, or major experimental or field work. So previously, this funding was limited to specific cost categories, But with this amendment, it can now apply to any eligible cost category, including personnel costs. So, for example, hiring staff that's needed to carry out large-scale experiments or field work. And another important update regarding the additional funding is that the researchers relocating to a European member state or associated country can now request up to 2 million euros in additional funding instead of the previous 1 million euros. Now the changes to the 2026 work program, which was published only 3 days ago. And there are 5 changes. We'll walk through each of them one by one. So one of the most significant changes is to the page limits of the proposal document. For the starting, consolidator, and advanced grants, the limit for the research proposal of part 2, and we'll see this later on, which is also referred to as B2, has been reduced by half. So from 14 to 7 pages. But part 1 of the proposal remains with a page limit of 5, so that there is no change on that one. And for the synergy grant, the part 2 is limited now to 10 pages. In addition, the resource and time commitment section in part A, which correspond to the online administrative form, is now limited to 2 pages for the starting, consolidator, and advanced grants, but can exceed 2 pages for the synergy. The second change refers to the eligibility extensions. So the ERC already had extensions for eligibility which apply to the starting and consolidator grants, since they have the limit after PhD, and they included maternity and paternity leave, long-term illness or national service, clinical training, and a few others. But now these extensions also include parental leave, for which time applies to the dedicated amount of leave taken for each child before the PhD defense. And the other is very new eligibility extension, and it's time away from research due to gender-based violence or other forms of violence. And violence in this context is very broad, and it's defined as any act intended to cause physical or psychological harm that resulted in the principal investigator being unable to work. So this change ensures broader recognition of career disruptions. But the evaluation criteria did not change at all, and we'll see them in more detail later. There are adjustments to where and when some aspects are assessed. So the feasibility is not evaluated in part 1 anymore, only in part 2. So this means that it will only be assessed during step 2 of the evaluation. And for the synergy grant, the combination of scientific approaches will be assessed only in part 2 instead of in part 1. So it will always also be evaluated at step 2. As in previous work programs, additional funding for starting consolidator and advanced grants can be up to 1 million euros and synergy grant up to 4 million euros. But the additional funding changes that were introduced in the 2025 work program amendment for the advanced grant will also apply here in 2026, where relocating researchers can request up to 2 million euros in funding, in additional funding. Researchers coming to Europe from outside. And these apply to any cost categories, including personnel costs, where applicants, of course, have to define and justify the purpose for requesting that additional funding. And finally, the fifth change to this work program are restrictions on resubmission. So applicants to the Synergy 2025 call who received a score B or C in step 1 cannot apply for the Synergy Grant 2026 call. Before, it was only a score of C in step 1 that was ineligible. Also, applicants with an ongoing ERC grant may only submit a new application if their current project is scheduled to end within 2 years of the 2026 call deadline. But remember that these last changes only apply to the 2026 work program, not the advanced grant call. To wrap up the section, I want to present an overview of the call calendar. So I included the opening and closing dates of the Advanced Grant 2025, which is open, and all of the 2026 work programs, work program calls. So the Advanced Grant 2025 is open, and also the starting and the Synergy Grant 2026 just opened in the last couple of days. And the Consolidator Grant will open in September. Now let's discuss the evaluation process. So remember that scientific excellence is the main evaluation criterion. The primary focus of ERC is on the proposed research, its groundbreaking nature, ambition, and feasibility. However, the PI is also assessed. The applicant is evaluated on their scientific capacity and independence, as well as expertise to carry out the proposed research. But keep in mind that it's not a competition of who has the best CV. You need to demonstrate that you're able to carry out the research you're proposing. And also note that for the Synergy grants, the PIs are evaluated both individually, according to their career stage, and also as a group. So this slide provides an overview of all elements of the ERC proposal. And there are 3 main parts to it. So part A consists of administrative forms and the abstract. So this one is filled online with proposal and PI information, host institution, resources, and time commitment, as well as ethics questions. Then part 1, or B1, is the proposal overview. You work on the template and submit it as a PDF. And this one includes a cover page with the abstract, the extended synopsis, up to 5 pages, plus references, which do not count toward this page limit, and the CV and track record up to 4 pages for each PI. And the third part is part 2, or B2, which is the detailed research proposal, and it's also submitted as a PDF. This part includes the state-of-the-art with objectives and methodology, and risk assessment. And remember that for the 2026 work program, the maximum number of pages for part 2 is 7, half of the current page limit of 14, which still applies for the advanced 2025 call. And it also includes an annex or funding ID, listing ongoing research grants and submitted applications that are related to the proposal. So this also doesn't count towards the page limit of part 2. And there are also annexes and supporting documentation, such as the host institution support letter, which is mandatory, extension and eligibility documents for the starting and consolidator grants, if applicable, ethical information, and so on. Now let's look how the evaluation process works. The ERC has only one submission with a 2-step evaluation by peer review panels. The first step is the ERC assigning reviewers for each proposal. And this is based on the keywords and abstracts that the PI selects. So it's based on the PI preference. And because of this, it's important to really carefully prepare the abstract and select the most appropriate keywords. And at step 1, each panel member evaluates the proposals individually or remotely. Then the panel meets to discuss and rank the proposals. In step 1, the panel reviews only part 1, meaning the abstract, extended synopsis, and CV and track record. And the evaluation criteria for part 1 are on the boxes in italic and include the groundbreaking nature and ambition of the research, where the following elements are assessed. To what extent does the research address important scientific questions? To what extent are the objectives ambitious and beyond the state of the art? Or will it advance the frontier of knowledge? For example, bring novel concepts or approaches or development between or across disciplines. And the PI's intellectual capacity and creativity with the following criteria. To what extent has the PI demonstrated the ability to conduct groundbreaking research? To what extent does the PI provide evidence of creative and original thinking? And to what extent does the PI have the required scientific expertise and capacity to successfully execute the project? So in step 1, the possible score outcomes are the following. A, invited, meaning the proposal is of excellent quality and ranked high enough to be invited to step 2 of the evaluation. And you note here that in this step, a maximum of 44 proposals can be invited to step 2. The second score is A, not invited. The proposal is of excellent quality as well, but not ranked sufficiently high to pass to step 2. And there are no resubmission restrictions for the next call with this score. Proposals scoring B are of high quality, but not sufficient to pass to step 2, and they cannot be resubmitted in the next call. They have to wait for 1 year. And finally, C, for proposals that do not sufficiently have sufficient quality to pass to step 2. So proposals with a score C face a 2-year restriction before reapplying. So proposals receiving a score A invited move on to next step, to step 2 of the evaluation. And here the panel members and remote reviewers, these remote reviewers are specialists in the specific proposal research field, evaluate the part 2 of the proposal while also having access to part 1 and the budget. So note that in step 1, there are generalists in the panel. This is critical to keep in mind while writing the proposal, because these generalists must also be able to understand your project. And here, as in step 1, the proposals are first evaluated remotely, individually by panel members, and also by the remote reviewers now. After this evaluation, they meet for the second panel meeting, where the principal investigator presents their proposal at an interview. And in step 2, the proposal is assessed based on the following criteria, where the first 2 in gray are also reviewed in step 1. So to what extent does the research address important scientific questions? To what extent are the objectives ambitious and beyond the state of the art? To what extent are the research methodology and working arrangements appropriate to achieve the goals of the project? And to what extent are the timescales and resources adequate and properly justified? And I highlighted feasibility here just to remind you that for the work program 2026, feasibility will be evaluated only in step 2 instead of in step 1. This is not true for the Advanced Grant 2025. So after the interview step, the panel ranks the proposals. The outcomes at this stage are A, the proposal meets the excellence criteria and is recommended for funding given sufficient funds are available. And if funds are available, they are A, funded, and if not available, they are A, not funded. The other outcome is B, where the proposal meets some but not all elements of the excellence criterion and will not be funded. So proposals reaching step 2 have no resubmission restrictions for the next call, and you can immediately reapply. We talked about panels in the previous slides, so I want to present the panel structure of the ERC. There are 28 panels, each covering a subsection of 3 broad domains: life sciences, physical sciences and engineering, social sciences and humanities. And these panels are meant to identify the correct experts to evaluate the proposals. So please be aware that they do not represent topics or scientific priorities. They're just a guidance for the ERC to select the best match of evaluators to your proposal. And it's the PI that chooses the panel for evaluation. And the budget is distributed among the scientific panels as a function of demand, so no success rate. So the success rate is the same between the panels. So don't think that if you apply to one or another panel, the success rate is going to be different. And last but not least, each panel has 1 chair and between 13 and 18 members. So for this next part of the webinar, I want to share some best practices for the proposal development. Here's a reminder of the 2 parts of the proposal seen by the reviewers and their elements. Part 1, consisting of the proposal overview and the PI profile, which is evaluated at step 1 and step 2. And part 2, comprising the detailed research proposal with budget, which is evaluated only at step 2. So, the first major decision is whether to apply and choosing the right time to apply. I know this seems obvious, but normally it takes quite a long time to develop ideas into a truly competitive ERC proposal. So prepare ahead. Discuss your ideas with colleagues and friends. If you're worried about your CV, but have a good idea, remember that it's not about who has the best CV. The research project has more weight than the PI track record. And the important is really to demonstrate that you can carry out the proposed research project. Many PIs hesitate to apply to the ERC because it's quite an effort to develop the application, it takes time, and it's highly competitive. But if you think you have a good idea that is fitted to the ERC, give it a try, because previous applicants are more successful than first-time applicants. And this is based on statistics from previous ERC calls for the different grant types. And this is because previous applicants benefit from using the feedback of the evaluation reports, as well as being already more familiar with the application style and process. So once after submitting, you receive an evaluation report summary with all comments about your proposal and the evaluation criteria. And this can really help you improve your idea and tailor it for making it more competitive. So we saw earlier that the ERC has 28 panels, each covering a specific scientific scope. So when applying, you must select 1 primary panel and 1 main keyword. This main keyword helps assign the most relevant reviewers and also guides the panel discussion during the step 2 of the evaluation. You may choose also up to 3 additional ERC keywords from the same panel or from different panels to reflect complementary topics that are relevant to your proposal. So there is a possibility to choose also a secondary panel. This is optional, but consider that if you do, the panel chairs may decide to assign your proposal to that second panel as the primary one. So you need to keep in mind. So if you really need also a second panel, explain why the proposal is cross-panel in part 1. So most importantly, select the ERC keywords that best represents your proposal's core field, and make sure that your abstract reflects those terms. You can also check the panel members' names on the ERC website to have an idea of the panel's expertise. Just remember that the success rate is equal among panels, as the budget is distributed depending on the demand. And finally, to help you choose the panel, you can also use the ERC dashboard to check which panels have evaluated projects or topics that are similar to your proposal. Now let's look at how to approach part 1, the extended synopsis. So the evaluation criteria for part 1 in step 1 that we saw earlier are on the right. And what's most important for the extended synopsis is find the right balance. So include all essential information to clearly convey your project's novelty and ambition. Remember that references don't count toward the page limit, so feel free to cite as many key literature as necessary to support your claims. Describe the innovation and groundbreaking nature of your idea. So does your project bring new solutions or theories? How far does it promise to go beyond the state of the art? Really think big, not incremental steps. Explain the state of the art, the state of play, and your unique contribution. So why is your idea and scientific approach innovative in the current landscape? Also know your competitors. Why is your approach original, and why are you the right person to do it? And keep it concise and clear. So avoid jargon. Remember that there are generalists in step 1. So not all evaluators will be experts in your specific area. Also be convincing, but do not oversell it. And ensure that the goals are ambitious but realistic. So if you add any case studies, justify them, properly justify all the methodologies that you chose. Use preliminary data to support your case if they are relevant to the project. And be open about risks and explain how you're going to mitigate them. Remember that the extended synopsis is not a summary of part B2. It really needs to stand on its own. This is really important to understand. So in short, part 1's goal is to get you to step 2, to the interview. So you must convince the panel that your idea is original and groundbreaking. It's really about the idea. Spark curiosity and excitement. Leave them wanting more after reading part 1. The other element of part 1 is the CV and track record of the principal investigator. Since 2023, the ERC has implemented a narrative CV format, aiming to have a more inclusive and comprehensive and fair evaluation process. For instance, it really moves away from the traditional metrics, such as H-index, and emphasizes the quality and significance of the researchers' contributions and allow them to explain their achievements by providing context. So the ERC suggests a template for this part, which is divided into 3 sections and can have a maximum of 4 pages. First is personal details, including education, qualifications, and employment. Second, research achievements and peer recognition. You should list up to 10 achievements with a short narrative. Choose the relevant outputs for your proposed project and explain why they're important for this application, for this project, and what your role was in achieving them. This is the place to add any relevant prizes and fellowships as well. The third section allows you to provide additional information, such as career breaks, diverse paths, or any other relevant contributions to the research community beyond research achievements. Next is part 2, the detailed research project, which could be seen as basically the implementation of the project. This should be an explanation of the project implementation, including research methodology, work plan, risk assessment, and mitigating measures, as well as justification for the requested budget and resources, and any further needed background that was not included in part 1. Your goal is to build on the foundation of part 1 and provide the technical depth needed to convince reviewers of the project's feasibility and the impact. So in other words, fill in the details of the extended synopsis, but do not repeat it. So make it coherent and connected with part 1, in a sense that part 2 reads as part of the same story that you told in the previous one. Highlight the same core vision and objectives, but provide scientific and technical details. This is where you convince experts in your field, as there will be an expert reviewer. So clearly describe the state of the art of your research field. What are the gaps or limitations that your project addresses? Methodology, provide a rigorous and detailed explanation of your approach. How will you test your hypothesis or carry out your research? And be precise, really state the techniques, the tools, models, data sets, etc. Work plan, break your project down into clear tasks and phases, ideally with timelines and milestones. This shows that you really thought about your project and it's manageable. In part 2, you should also clearly discuss what's challenging and unconventional about your project. And at the same time, reassure reviewers that you thought about the potential risks and have a strategy how to deal with them. Describe the roles of key team members or collaborators, if you have them. So while ERC grants are awarded to individual PIs, the team around you matters. Remember, you're either starting your team or consolidating your team. Explain why they are essential and how they support the project success. And finally, justify requested resources. Explain your budget properly. Really don't inflate it. It should be reasonable and it should be well justified for the methodology that you choose. In summary, part 2 should impress the reviewers, really with a strong work plan and enough details to show your project is feasible while considering risks. Moving on to the last part of my presentation, I want to share some resources and links to relevant documents. So first, the Mentoring Initiative. So this is organized by the ERC and implemented through national or regional contact points like us at Luxinnovation. And in Luxembourg, we are responsible for that, where the main goal of the ERC Mentoring Initiative is to connect ERC applicants with grantees or former evaluation panel members who can offer advice to strengthen the quality of their proposals. While the initiative primarily targets countries with a lower level of participation and success rate, Luxembourg does perform well. However, because of the small size of our country, some scientific fields remain underrepresented when it comes to the ERC grants. So we'll participate in the mentoring initiative to really broaden access to international mentors across a wider range of research fields. So this is a great opportunity to get feedback from someone outside Luxembourg who understands the ERC expectations and can challenge you to refine your idea further. So if you're applying with a host institution in Luxembourg and you're interested in learning more, feel free to send me an email directly for more details. And to conclude, There are several documents from the ERC, including the work program and information for applicants, which are absolutely important for any applicant to read. But there are also other resources, such as the ERC classes, which are videos with excellent information. And just yesterday, the ERC announced the release of new videos. So check their YouTube channel, as they will release one each day. And also the ERC dashboard with data on grants and proposals that have been funded, that you can use to benchmark funded projects in your field, as well as PI profiles. So with this, I want to thank you for your attention so far, and I'm very happy to introduce our guest speaker, Dr. Florian Kaiser. So Florian is the group leader of the quantum materials team at LIST. LIST is the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, and he holds an FNR Pearl chair for the acoustic project on next generation quantum technologies. And he was recently awarded an ERC Consolidator Grant for his Q-chip project. So I'll leave it to him to share his trajectory and his experience in preparing the successful ERC application. Thank you, Florian, for joining us.
Thank you, Clarissa, for this nice introduction, good summary, and also highlighting the changes of the current program. So my name is Florian Kaiser. Again, I'm at Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, and today I want to take you a bit on a journey on my way to an ERC Consolidator Grant, and I hope this can give you some inspiration and some tips and tricks how you can be successful. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. You see who I am and how was my trajectory in my scientific career. So I am from the south of Germany, from a city called Reutlingen, where I grew up. And during my childhood and youth, I essentially only did sports and even more sports. So I tried all kinds of different disciplines. Then I focused in on fencing. My actual life goal was to become the world champion in fencing. I trained really hard for that. And I was really just very close at the age of 18 years to do this on a professional level, so to get paid for that. But it was just not enough. And okay, then I was a bit sad, obviously, but then I said, okay, I have to do something, and I studied physics. So it was really not my first choice, but okay, you have to do something with your life. So I studied then physics in Stuttgart, where I did a master thesis in quantum physics, solid-state quantum physics, mainly experimental physics. Followed then up with a PhD and postdoc in Nice, in the south of France. Really fell in love with the city, and I continued on the experimental quantum physics trajectory. But then I must say that after my postdoc, I got really a bit bored by research, I must say, and that is why I changed. I went to the DESI in Hamburg, which is at the intersection between research and industry. So here I was a laser engineer developing the laser for the X-FEL photocathode there. But I must say that this was even more boring to me. I was really just engineering, and that's why I went back to do a second postdoc in my old team in Nice, where I developed new quantum optics experiments. Again, I fell in love with the city, and I also met my wife there. Together we went then to Stuttgart, since I got an assistant professor position offered there, and again continued in quantum physics. So you see there's a common theme, where I started to work on semiconductor quantum physics. And since 2.5 years or so, I'm a group leader at LIST here in Luxembourg, where we work on the nanofabrication of these semiconductors to make them scalable. So this trajectory takes me now over the last 20 years or so. I guess now you have a bit of a feeling who I am. Okay, well, now let's come to the interesting part of the talk. So I would like to give you a bit of an overview. So let's start with the motivation of why I was motivated to apply for a Consolidator grant. Then main part of the talk be about the experience that I had with the grant submission process. I hope I can give you some advice, tips and tricks and guidelines how to do that. I will speak a bit about the interview phase afterwards. And then, hopefully in the end, I can give you some additional tips and tricks. All right, let's start with the motivation. Why did I want to have a consolidator grant? And the reason was really I wanted to get things done in research. So I had some ideas where my field of research has to develop to, but I must say that I felt a little bit restricted by things that are currently going on in my team. So I am very happy that I'm part of amazing projects. So two of the most important ones that I'm currently running is the Quantum Internet Alliance project, where we look at quantum systems for the quantum internet. And then I have also been awarded a FNR Pearl Chair, where we investigate new quantum technologies and surface physics. But I felt like this is mainly outlined to serve the current needs of quantum technology in Luxembourg. And I wanted to do something a bit more with a long-term perspective. And so there were also new ideas. So this is actually the main trigger point for me. So we had new ideas and opportunities because some of my students, they discovered a new quantum system, which I found super amazing, super promising. And for me, it's usually very open in my science community. So I asked other professors in the field if they think that this is interesting and they want to do that. But they found it a bit too risky. So they didn't believe in it. But I did believe in this new system. I thought it's really absolutely disruptive, and we must do something about it and go for it. So then, I looked around to support this research. You need also a bit of money, right? So I looked around. There are different potential opportunities, several in the European Union. And then, of course, Luxembourg has also a vast amount of funding instruments for that. And it is, before doing that, I questioned myself, do I actually have everything to apply for ERC Consolidator Grant, or is it completely hopeless? So the first thing I looked at was the call guidelines, what Clarissa now just summarized. And for me, the most important thing was to ask myself, do I have enough time to submit this proposal? And my issue was that I decided mid of November to apply for the Consolidator Grant. And the deadline was then mid of December. Yeah, you should absolutely not do that. I mean, this was really crazy. I was not sleeping anymore for 4 weeks. Please take more time. But okay, for me, it was like this. Now, in the guidelines, for me, it was still a bit different compared to what you have now. But so there was like 6 pages of B1, so a 1-page title page, and then 5 pages of text, 4 pages for the CV, 14 pages of the B2. You now have 7 pages, if I understand correctly. The PhD documents, the finances, eligibility checks, and then also it's very important, you need people to help you read your proposal who are experienced, and who are also not shy to criticize you. So I checked that, and so what I could answer in these questions is, yes, this B1 part, it's a bit freestyle, but I can write this, it's fine. The narrative CV, I had it already. There are many other calls in which you have to provide this, so I have already the baselines of that one. The 14 pages for the B2, I have the templates, and I had experience with writing such documents. And then all the other documents I had, right? I had my PhD certificates, all fine. Finances and eligibility checks, I led this up to my secretary. And luckily, I have a very good network who was willing to help me and was willing to criticize me to help me to advance. Second thing that I checked is whether I am really suitable, because let's be honest, everybody thinks that they are outstanding and the best researcher, but there are maybe some tests to yourself that you can do to see, did you already reach the level? And of course, this is a bit different compared to starter grant and consolidator grant and advanced grant. For me, again, it was about the consolidator grant. And so what I did first is I scanned the list of former consolidator grantees. And then I was like, wow, these are only the famous people in my field. So, I may be close, but I'm absolutely not at their level. And then I just told to myself, okay, look, these guys who had the consolidator grant, they finished it already. So of course, nowadays they are more famous. But at the point when they submitted, maybe they were a little bit less famous. So I felt like maybe I'm roughly on the same level. Then I asked myself, very important, whether I have some credibility in my research community, because in the end, it's people from my community that will review myself or my proposal. So I checked my age index compared to others. It's not the only criterion, but it's just one criterion that certainly reviewers look at. So I checked my age index. It was reasonable compared to the others. I checked whether I personally, very important, personally know the people in my field. So they have seen my face, I have seen their face. We have talked already personally together. So I don't come as a surprise to them. And yes, I know pretty much everybody in my field. It's a very small field. There's maybe overall globally 1,000 people also working, including all the students on my topic. And then I asked myself, do those people in my field actually know that I was the manager, that I run the show of my experiments in the lab? So they should not believe that I was a postdoc who received everyday instructions from the professor what to do. And yes, most of the people in my field, they know that I was the driving force of my research in the last couple of years. And you can also benchmark this statement because if this statement is true, that they know that you run the show, then you have certainly already been invited to give talks. You have been invited to project consortia. You have been invited to make reviews, and they have also certainly invited you every now and then to apply for a position, professor position, engineer, researcher position. And I could also answer this with yes. So I felt very confident that at least the experts in my field, they know that I'm the good one, I can run such a project. And then finally, of course, when we talk about the project, you have to ask yourself, is your project idea really new? Yeah. And to know that, you have to be on top of your field. You need to know everything about your field. You need to have read all the papers and also papers, in surrounding fields. And again, here are the questions that I asked to myself. So I asked myself, do I know all the papers in the field? Yes, every morning I read everything on archive in the quantum technology branch. So I am very confident that I know everything in my field. I discussed also my ideas with colleagues to see if they have some inputs or feedback before. Very important is certainly also that your research institute provides you the environment to run the project, right? This is also something that is being checked. And at least we have essentially everything almost, but you can ask for additional money to buy remaining equipment. And then, of course, it's important that you ask yourself, do you actually have enough time to run such a project? For the Consolidator Grant, you have to invest 40% of your research time into this project, and they check that, they track the hours. And for other projects, I think Starter Grant is 50%, Advanced Grant is 30%. And for me, then also the last question, this is of course a tricky one. We are usually biased, but the question is, you have to ask yourself if your research idea is only interesting to you because you have a personal interest or a personal, thirst to just look at something. But you have to ask yourself, is your idea also interesting to others and not just to you? You will certainly believe that your idea should be interesting to others, but it's not about the should, right? It's about, is it really interesting to others? So benchmark yourself about that. So I could, answer for me personally, certainly a bit biased, to all of these questions with yes. And then I went to the next step. And that is now, start to write this proposal. And so here, what I did is my head of unit, he told me that I should contact a consultant that he already had for a successful advanced grant. And so when I had the first discussion with this consultant, external consultant, he was a former Max Planck group leader. His objective was really to get me into the heads of the reviewers, because the reviewers, right, they have to understand your project and so on. So we met on the 15th of November. I still have the tracks of it, very late at night, was very motivated to work anytime. And so what he did is he gave me a 1-hour introduction, similar to what the Clarissa now did is, ERC overview, what is the program about, what are the evaluation criteria. We also looked at the statistics, who gets an ERC, from which nationalities, which topics, and so on. We then scanned the different panels, who are the panel members and the panel chairs and so on, to just get an idea what is the best panel for me to apply. I had 2 to choose, PE2 and PE3. In the end, we went for PE3. It sounded more suitable. He also gave me then the guideline to watch all the videos that the commission puts on these ERC grants. So also what Clarissa now just said. And then he gave me, very importantly, the handbook of the reviewers, because you see what the reviewers have to evaluate. Yeah, so they have a to-do list, a checklist, what to check. And of course, you should have the same headlines and highlight all of these checklist words such that you make it easy for the reviewers to find the answers to your criteria. And then we also discussed about other things like best text fonts and then how to write a proposal. What then happened is that the consultant told me, okay, just prepare this, the title page with this half-page abstract for him. And he said, take 2 to 3 days. This made me completely scared because I said, what the heck, I have no time. How can you tell me that I should take 2 to 3 days for a half-page abstract? But he said, no, trust me, just do it. And okay, I did this then. And the important point is certainly, again, as Clarissa said, is this abstract has to catch experts, but especially non-experts in the field. Yeah. And so you have to write it in a simple style. And of course, what the consultant also told me is, okay, tell your students and family you won't see them anymore until the deadline, because you have to focus now. Again, for you, it may be different if you don't apply just 4 weeks before, but yeah, it's still a tough process. And so then here we came up with a preliminary agreement 2 days later about the abstract, half-page abstract, all fine. And then we went to the next step. So next step for me was then to write this B1 part, right? Which, if this is evaluated successfully, then you can go to the B2. And the main rule for the B1 is to keep it as simple as possible. And what I mean by that is, I show you here. So first thing that I did is, in order to write the B1, because for me this was a bit the hardest part, is I went to the Austrian, let's say, website, because in Austria they publish quite a good database of successful ERC grants. You can see all the documents, you can read the entire proposal, super amazing, and you can get some inspiration and some ideas. So what I read was, I read 2 proposals from quantum, one from biology and one from social media. I'm a quantum guy, right? And what I found amazing is that in all of these proposals, I actually understood the ideas behind the proposal and the novelty of these. Yeah, I didn't have the potential to verify whether the biologists and social media scientists actually said the truth. I couldn't verify that, but I had the impression I can understand what they want to do and why it's super important. And that's when I then said in the end, okay, my proposal, this B1 part, needs to be so simple that even a social media scientist can understand what I have to do. Yeah, if I can understand social media scientists, then it should also be vice versa. And so here's roughly a guideline of how I wrote this part B1. So this is the first page of the B1, a lot of text, but then I put here a box in the beginning, which essentially states the problem that we have in the field. So really very early and very well placed, you state, we have a big problem in my field of research. A little bit later, there's a box which then says what is actually causing this problem. Yeah, and what you then also see is I have here 3 rather simple figures which show you what is my trajectory to solve this root cause. So I have here on the left side, the first image is something that maybe is familiar with some of you. This is the architecture of Apple's latest M1 chips. Maybe you have seen it already in some Apple presentation. In the middle, the image shows what is the long-term ambition that I have. And on the right side, so we also want to make similar chips, but for quantum. And on the right side, the image shows you what I will do within this project. So really very simple, and I used also simple words here. Just guiding again the reviewers, right? So you have to make it easy for them to follow, and it should be also nicely written. Then here, this is page 2. So on page 2, immediately on the top, I said, okay, what are the general goals of this project? And I put 3 reasonable key objectives. You shouldn't also have too many objectives, but I say, okay, we have 3 key objectives. Yeah, we have to develop new control methods. We have to create entanglement between 2 color centers, and then we have to benchmark a quantum chip. Really on that level, I wrote that. Another thing to make it simple, and I think especially in physics, we are often a victim of this. We want to show complicated equations and demonstrate that we know everything. But again, this is not important here. What you see here, this is the only equation I have in my entire proposal. It's a very simple equation, right? It's like frequency is something gamma divided by d to the power of 3. That's it. And this equation is, of course, completely wrong, right? I put here a proportional sign. The real equation is this one here on the bottom right. But I'm not going to put this monster equation here because a social media scientist will just feel completely overwhelmed and have no idea how to follow, how to understand anything. And anyways, the only 2 key parameters in this equation are this gamma here for me and this d to the power of 3. These are the 2 key elements for my research, for my proposal, for my new idea. And that's why I only put this. And of course, to show to the experts that I actually know also the real equation, this is why I have a footnote put, which then says, okay, the real equation is of course much more complicated, includes all kinds of angular terms and blah, blah, blah. But this doesn't get the point through to where I want to go. So don't be shy, keep it very simple. The next thing was then to write your narrative CV at this point. And so here, for me at least, it's usually important to put numbers, right? Numbers give you credibility. So if you can put some numbers here, or at least a graph that goes upwards, that gives you credibility instead of just talking words. So what I did is I checked some of the numbers that define my research career, the number of talks and invited talks, the number of papers on Scopus, not on Google Scholar, because often Scholar gives you wrong results. So I would really suggest you go to Scopus to check your citations and papers, the H-index, development, prizes and awards, and so on. So I looked at all of these numbers, and then I checked which of these numbers develops the best. And this is then the graph here in the middle, which I put into my proposal, which is the number of talks and invited talks that I gave throughout my career. And then, I put also an arrow here to show, okay, everything is on an uprising trend. It's really a good time to invest money into my proposal right now. You may have a different graph that shows a nice upwards trajectory, right? Then very important also for the ERC is the bottom part here. So you should also have in your CV a good statement about the number of students that you supervised and the statistics. By statistics, I mean especially you have to show that you can develop people. So if you say I supervised 10 students, nice, but you also have to say what became of them. Yeah, for me, 2 of my students are now professors. Some of them work in industry. Some of them have now a postdoc at Harvard or at Stanford. So, I could really show that the people who I supervised before, they have become now something big, which shows that you are a good manager and you can develop careers. This is very important here that you mentioned this. And it goes also a bit along of the mentioning which lectures and teaching duties you had, because if you have some of these, you can already show that you can teach new students knowledge. And certainly this is what you have to do in such a project. You have to teach people. So don't forget to mention this one. Okay, then after the CV, then I started with the part B2, and I would say that the part B2 should be easy for you because it's about your research. If you know your research well and your idea, you have it well developed, it should not be so hard to write it, in my opinion. The main rule for me here in writing B2 was to make it as hard as possible for the reviewers to criticize me. So to not let any flaw or any thoughts, being missed. And so some rules, I put them here. So again, B2 should be easy for you. Just make sure to keep it simple. The experts in the field anyways know that you are good. You mainly have to convince the non-experts that you are the best one. And so you have to keep it simple such that they can follow you. Very important is that you cite appropriately. So don't make mistakes in your references, keep them honest. And especially important, don't forget your competitors. One of your competitors or 2 will read your proposal and evaluate it, right? And there's nothing worse than if you forget to cite them, then they will feel angry and then they will just write a comment, oh, the applicant seems to not be aware of the latest research. So his project is useless because he's just doing what somebody else is doing. So cite also your competitors, just be fully honest and transparent. And for reference, I had 130 references cited in part B2. So maybe you should opt for a similar number, certainly not just 10 references, right? Better to cite more than less references or papers. You should also mention, of course, the preliminary results. This gives a bit of credibility that you already have something. Things will go smoothly, especially in the beginning of the project. And of course, you take it to the next level. Important also to mention that your project is timely. They must invest money now into you, otherwise it's too late for Europe or for this type of research. And it's also very, very important, at least for me always, to invest the most time into optimizing the methodology and the work packages. You will see later what I mean by that. And it's also absolutely crucial to have a good section of risk management to show that you're a good manager and you can deal with mishaps and have a plan B ready. So to give a few guidelines on B2, what I did is, so to keep it simple, right? So I put myself in the head of a reviewer here, who will read my part B1, right? Read then my CV. Then the reviewer, will go have dinner, maybe play with the kids, spend some time with the partner, and then come back 3, 4, 5 hours later, late in the evening at 10 o'clock, sitting in bed and continue reading part B2. So in part B2, you have to very, very briefly recall your proposal such that the reviewer gets an idea, I was reading this proposal, let's continue. Yeah. So I have here a very, very short section, 5 lines of text, just recalling the project idea. And then you can also recognize these images. I had them before on part B1 also. So just, showing visually, it's this proposal, I remember, let's continue. Of course, all the other text that I write in the rest is not the same as before. This part B2 should not be a copy of B1. You have to write something new here. Another thing is investing much time into methodology and work packages. Certainly it helps to have a PERT chart, for example. For me, it was possible, I guess the resolution is not ideal, but for me, it was possible to structure my research really along a chain. So I had, work package 1, I do the first 3 steps, then work package 2, I do the next 2 steps, and work package 3 is then benchmarking, and everything aligns along a line. I also put here in the description of the figure and also somewhere in the text how I am going to benchmark the success of each work package. Yeah, you need smart, so you need measurements that are verifiable, that you are successful, also for yourself, not just for them. Then I describe the work packages into individual tasks, and I usually prefer to do it like this. I have a short headline for each task. Then I say who is involved in this project, right? So as a manager, you should have a good plan who will work on which task. So here it was a PhD student and an engineer, and then also the time frame, the realistic time frame. So I put months 1 to month 12 here. So this is usually, but in order to do this, you really have to have a good plan, right? It will take you a while to make, for example, this Gantt chart that I had also in my proposal. And you see that one thing I can also advise you is to not have too many time overlapping work packages. So you see that work package 1 essentially is finished after 15 months. There's only one task that continues almost throughout the entire project. Once work package 1 is finished, then I go to work package 2 here in blue, and then I go to work package 3 after work package 2 is finished. And this is also a bit of a risk mitigation, right? So let's assume that work package 1 takes for some reason much longer. It's not the end of the world, right? Yes, my project will then take 6 years instead of 5 to complete all the goals, but it's not going to destroy the entire project. So this was a bit of a risk management. And if work package 1 is late, we are not going to delay 5 other tasks at the same time. Another advice that I can give is that if you define milestones and deliverables, don't try to over-engineer it. Yeah? Keep it simple, keep as few as possible, should of course be relevant, but I would say as a guideline, maybe 1, maximum 2 milestones or deliverables per year, not more. Because in the end, you want to do research and you don't want to do constant reporting. You should also be smart in deciding upon the time when these milestones are due. So you should probably have a couple of milestones before the first reporting phase, let's say the halftime report or so, such that you can have a report and say, okay, I achieved all of these milestones, made my decisions, and a couple of deliverables are also already done, and then continue. So don't over-engineer it. Otherwise, you're also not credible if you have 20 milestones. This is not possible. Okay, then again, part B2, so mentioning some of the preliminary results. I usually think it's very nice if you can show some images with results. So here we had some simulations to show that all of our nanostructures and chip design will work. Now we just have to make it a reality, and we also showed some nanofab experimental results from the lab. Then in terms of risk management, this is very, very, very important. So I've been reviewed already a couple of times, and quite a few proposals have been rejected because applicants simply did not provide adequate risk management. And it just means that you are not aware of how to manage a project or what can go wrong. So you're maybe a bit, your knowledge is not here at 100%. Usually I like to structure risk management a bit like this. So I give it a short title, then I say how likely it is that this risk will materialize, and then also what is the impact for the project and which tasks are influenced by that. And of course, sometimes you will have to come up with a few of these risks. And the conclusion, of course, of every description of risk should be that your task still remain feasible because you have a plan B to do something. Yeah, it should not be the conclusion, if this risk materializes, the entire project is gone. So think about this properly. Good. Yeah, now maybe I would skip from here to the interview phase. So once your written proposal is evaluated successful, then you get invited for interview phase. They will give you strict guidelines depending on the panel. It's a bit different. For me, it was like this. I had a 7-minute presentation to give, plus minus 5 seconds. And then there was 18 minutes of questions and answers. And you will get an email. They will inform you about everything. You have to do it in WebEx and so on. So, they will guide you. So again, I discussed then with my consultant. You can see that was almost 1 year later. And so what he then did is, he first wanted to get me now into the heads of the panel members. The panel members are not experts in your field. These people are just asking questions that the experts, wrote to them. So you know who you are talking to. You're not going to bomb them with a lot of details. You just have to sound very convincing and give, again, simple and efficient answers. So we had with this consultant a long discussion, about an hour. He gave me a lot of tips on, how to optimize my video conferencing setup. I did this at home, not here at work, because I was sure that my internet connection is better at home. We tested microphone, video. We choose a good chair, so I'm always sitting upright and don't look like this, just to look a bit more professional. We put a background and so on. He then told me about the general agenda, how this interview works. We checked out then the panel members and the chair that I had, and then we found out that the chair of my panel, she's a theoretical physicist in my research field. So she will certainly know what I'm talking about, although I'm experimental, but this was already very good to know who you are talking to. Then we prepared questions and answers, so mocked up this one, and we made slides to be as simple as possible. And the most important thing for this interview is that you must cut out everything that is not absolutely necessary. And to show you this, here, sorry, I will show you in a second. And so then my guideline that the consultant gave to me was, first, make very simple slides, without any unnecessary details. And then I should write my speech that I want to give on these slides just in a Word document. So, and you can count roughly that 1,000 characters in Word corresponds roughly to 1 minute of speech. So I knew for my 7-minute interview, I should keep it below 7,000 characters. But then the consultant also told me, don't practice your speech. We just now, do a little bit of a back and forth to optimize it. And so to show you how simple my slides are or were, and I have seen many other candidates who had similar simple slides. These are 5 of the slides that I presented. And you see essentially all of these slides, they just have images. So I make here the problem statement again, that on the top slide, there are quantum computers, there are quantum memories. If you bring them together in the middle, everything gets super complicated. Then I said, okay, we have seen in the classical world how it works to make it simple. We go from crazy, electronic technology to semiconductor chips, and everything gets meaningful. We want to do the same with silicon carbide, with my platform. And then very important on the last slide to state the impact that your project will have. And this is actually the slide with the most text that I had. So you see there's 3 lines of text. That's all I had. Again, you have to be in the head of the panel members who have to, in my case, I think they had to evaluate 100 interviews. They will do this the entire week. Every day they will have 20, 30 interviews. So they will be just completely tired and drained by energy following all of these different presentations. So make it simple for them, make it entertaining, catch them with some memory that they had in the past, just to make it easy for them. And again, this presentation is just 7 minutes to remind them about your project. So make it easy for them. Here is the questions and answers that I prepared. So I prepared 17 pages for myself with questions and answers. Always on the left column, I wrote some hypothetical question. Half of the questions came from the consultant who had, showed me the standard questions that they will ask you about your management skills and whatever. And the other half, I put scientific questions. In the middle column, I put my hypothetical answers. And you can see that all of these answers have roughly the same length, right? You see that the space they take in terms of text is roughly the same. Why? Well, because the panel people, they want to ask you as many questions as possible. Yeah, they want to ask you some 15 to 20 questions or so. So you should not give an answer that is like 2 minutes long. Yeah, I had an 18-minute interview time then, or questions and answers. So I structured all of my answers to be 20 to 30 seconds. Cut out all the unnecessary details, just very short and efficient. And of course, I learned then all of these answers, so I have them ready. If such a question comes, I know exactly what I have to answer. So it's really important to be prepared to not waste any time here. And yeah, roughly, I tracked which questions they asked me. So in this 18 minutes, I was able to answer a bit more than 20 questions. I think it was 25. 60% of the questions that I had, they were related to the research of the project. A couple of questions that I got were tested, were here to test myself, I had the impression. They were very provocative questions. One reviewer asked, okay, Florian, let's assume the most likely case that nothing in your project works. It's a complete disaster. What do we have from you? Why should we give you all this money? And of course, it's a provocative question. The reviewer certainly doesn't believe it, but he just wanted to test if I'm now going to get angry or if I can calmly answer. And that is certainly also a question about your management skills. Can you deal with these stressful situations? 10% of the questions were asked about my management, how I'm going to recruit, for example, people, what's the plan? I mean, Luxembourg is a small country, how will you get the good people to Luxembourg and so on. 10% of the questions were about my competition, what I think about them and why they should give money to me and not to my competitors. Again, you have to be fair. You shouldn't say that the competitors are shit, huh? But just nice. And then there was also a question about my ongoing projects that I have, because I had 3 other ongoing projects at that time, and they wanted to know if there's any overlap, because the European Research Council does not do double funding, of course. So you have also to be prepared for that one. And yeah, this I think brings me now essentially to the end. I have just one slide with a lot of text, sorry guys, but with some additional tips. You can certainly read it also later, but what I can advise to you is to not write B1 and B2 part in 4 weeks. It was mentally extremely draining for me. And I'm very thankful, of course, to my wife and also my students who I made to help me with this proposal. They made most of the figures for me, so it's amazing. But I think it's better if you do it in a couple of months instead of a couple of weeks. From my personal experience, is that I can really recommend that you consider taking a consultant or an advisor. You don't have to do it, but it's just good to have a second opinion. And here, this was a person I didn't know. My consultant was from chemistry, had nothing to do with my quantum research. So I really got, a good feedback from him to especially make the proposal simple, because I had to make it as simple as possible, such that he can also understand it. From the interview phase, I have maybe one advice, because what happened to me was that there was one reviewer who was always asking 4 questions in one. And, it's of course a stressful situation. I was usually able to answer 2 to 3 of these questions, but then I forgot what was the first question you asked. And then I had to ask, hey, man, what was the first question you asked? And of course, you lose again 10 seconds of your interview. So I can say it's a good advice to have a pencil and just write down one keyword for each of these many questions. And this gives you an easy way to answer all the questions without losing time. Then what helped me a lot was to break down my proposal writing into small tasks. I mean, if you think I'm only happy once I have written everything, you will not be happy by yourself. So if you make it in small tasks, I finished the abstract, I finished the first 2 pages, I've made all the figures, you are happy every second day, and this gives you a lot of motivation to continue. And a consultant, a paid consultant, as Clarissa writes, can also help you with that. My consultant's pricing, I think, was 80 euros per hour. And in total, I used him for 24 hours for proposal writing and the interview phase. So this was 2,000 euro bill. And I got 3 million euros, so definitely a good investment, I would say. Then what I can say is, maybe it's slightly contrary to what Clarissa said, is don't be too ambitious in your ERC grant proposal. You have to keep it realistic. Yeah. Yes, the ERC says it should be groundbreaking, everything should be new, no continuation, blah, blah, blah. But from the reviews that I got, the reviewers, they said that it's very nice that work package 1 and 2 are absolutely doable because it's based on my preliminary work. Of course, it's new research, but it's very sure that this will be successful, these first 2 work packages, because it's solid research. It is things that have to be done. Florian is the best one who can do that research, but you know, it's not trying to invent something completely new. It's just solid continuation. And then, of course, work package 3 was very ambitious. The reviewer said it's almost too ambitious because there's quite a risk that work package 3 will fail. But of course, if it works, it's an absolute breakthrough. Yeah, so keep it as a good mixture. Yeah, half of it should be successful of your proposal if you just work hard and proper. And of course, the other half needs to be this cool new thing that makes a breakthrough. But not everything should be a breakthrough from the ground up. And then another critique that I got in my reviews, and I got 9 reviews, very, very exhaustive. I think I had 17 pages of reviews or so. One criticism that I got was that, you know, we are the European Research Council, the research, and my project was quite a bit engineering based, which is true. I do a lot of photonics engineering in this proposal. And they said that essentially within my proposal, there is only one real research part. So it's almost a little bit too little. Doesn't mean that you have to do only research in your ERC grant, but you know, think about a few research points here. This one almost made me not have this proposal. Yeah, so this is maybe one point, yeah, to do that. And with this, I'm at the end of my presentation. I hope I could give you a little bit of advice, and certainly happy to have a little bit of a questions and answer session.
Well, thank you so much, Florian, for sharing your journey in so much detail. You really had a particular experience preparing your ERC proposal. Much of what you did was spot with the recommendations for ERC applicants, and obviously aligned with expectations of evaluators. And of course, everybody's journey is different, but these are great insights to get anyone started. But let's reinforce that one of your pieces of advice is that when you wrote your proposal in 1 month and was successful, I don't recommend it.
No, absolutely not. It was very draining.
Yeah. I see we're almost on top of the hour, but I see only a few questions. Some were already addressed on the chat. It's about actually being necessary to hire paid consultants, or if people are going to get the support without paid consultants. So, of course, no, you don't have to hire paid consultants. You can count on NTPs and also your institution's research administration, who have sometimes dedicated people, specialists on ERC. And regarding NTPs, we offer it for free. Of course, we have a different workload because we not only have, in my case, I'm the NTP for the ERC, but also for other programs, and I get for applications from all applicants in Luxembourg. So the time dedicated might be different. The timeline, also as early as you start working with an NTP, the better. And yes, it's possible to get it without a consultant, I believe. So that's me for my answer. And maybe just one question to Florian before we go. Did your proposal evolve much since the original idea?
Maybe I just wanted to give one additional comment to getting a consultant or so. So in Luxembourg, we have also this PEP-CV, which is a platform that brings you into contact with leading researchers. So you can apply there, and then you can talk maybe to me or to other people. Yeah, it's like a meet and match platform here. Again, for me, it was also like this, that when I pitched this idea to the list that I want to have the ERC grant, they said that they pay the consultant. It's a paid consultant, but not from my private money. So I just sent the invoice to the list. I mean, they also see the benefit, right? 2,000 euros invested to get 3 million euros back. I mean, it shouldn't be too hard to convince your research institute to make that step, if they believe in you. Yeah. Did my proposal much evolve since then? No, not really, I would say. A few small details changed. The overall idea is the same. One or two techniques changed now. So we do nanofabrication a lot in this proposal or in this project. And we found out in the meantime some other things, how to do it better. So if anything, it was accelerated. So some of the parts of the first work package will be finished faster, but with a slightly different method.
Cool. Thanks, Florian. And we got another question there. How important do you think are high impact publications, Nature, Science, Cell? Florian, do you want to take it first? Then I go if needed.
I would say for the starter grant, probably not at all. I think it's much more important to be connected to the network, that your people in the field know that you have this ambition and that they are not caught by surprise, that they see your proposal and it's like, hey, who's this person? Never heard about it, about this person. For me, it is like this. So if my network knows about me, then they will support me. I would say, I mean, just taking my example, right? In my entire career, 20 years, I have one paper in Nature and one in Science. That's it. And then, okay, many other papers. So I don't think you have to bomb. And these papers are a long time ago. Huh? These are not even from my current research. And I still got the Consolidator Grant. I would imagine, maybe Clarissa knows more, that for the advanced grant, it gets a bit more important. But I think it's more important that your network knows that you are the good person to do a project and that they know that you want to do something like this and that you can do it.
Yeah, thanks, Florian. Yeah, it's true. And remember that the ERC does not check the metrics. They are checking what was the impact that you had on your scientific field. So it doesn't have to be a high impact publication. It may help, but honestly, that's what the ERC is trying to move away from, these traditional metrics, and give you the chance to actually show your contribution that is relevant, even though you might not have a high impact publication. So yeah, I would reinforce that. And obviously, the starting grant, nobody expected to have that, the consolidator either. So they are not mandatory, absolutely not.
And I think this is really why the narrative CV is quite important. You shouldn't neglect it. This is your time to just tell your story, what you have achieved. Yes, you can have your 10 research achievements, and you can also say in which papers you have, but then you have to say for each of your achievements, what was your contribution? Don't just say, I'm an author on one of these Nature papers. Yeah, okay. So there are 20 authors. How can I know what you did? You have to say that you were the PI, you developed this idea, and on this idea, then you supervised 3 students or so. And what I read from the comments that I got from my reviews, they really liked that I supervised. I mean, it was a lot of students, but I supervised like 40 students until then in my career, and many of them have had a super nice track afterwards in the research career, right? So this shows that you are a manager. You can handle such a project, and good things will come from that. So really don't neglect the narrative CV. From the comments, I could see that the reviewers really read it.
Yeah, they need to know that they can trust you with 2 billion euros. So that's indeed the case. So I will answer just, there is one more question. I want to answer that before closing. Are there specific requirements on the host institution? In particular, can it be an SME accredited as a research institution? Yes, it can. And can the PI be already working at the host institution? Yes, it can. So yes, for both the requirements, the only requirements are very well outlined in the work program. And it's about being the host institution being established in a European member state or associated country. And your contract employment status, it's absolutely not relevant for being eligible to apply for an ERC grant. So it's actually the case that many startee applicants do not even have a contract or a permanent contract, but they do have the host, obviously, who are willing to support them if they get the ERC grant. Okay, so that's it. I want to thank you so much, everybody, for your interest and for joining us in this webinar. And don't hesitate to contact me if you're applying in Luxembourg. And I'm looking forward to supporting you. Thanks again to Florian for your amazing insights. And good luck with the rest of your project, which actually just started. So it will all be great. Thank you so much. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.